Hello, welcome, I'm Hannah, and today I want to tell you about my collection of Clionadh eyeshadows. I feel like Clionadh is kind of like the creme de la creme of the indie makeup community, and I figured I would just go through my kind of large, I would consider, collection, swatch them all by formula, maybe try to simplify it a little bit if you're someone who's trying to get into indie eyeshadows and looking to purchase from Clionadh, and if you're someone who's well-versed and experienced with them also, I think you'll just enjoy soaking in the shininess. The first thing to say about Clionadh is that they have a couple different lines, and all of the ones I'm going to be talking about are from the Stained Glass collection and showing them to you line by line within the Stained Glass collection. Those are all the ones in the little rectangular pans. They also have circular shadows, and those are just more, I'd say, like basic formulas. There's pretty things in there too, but I have personally decluttered all of the circle shadows that I've acquired, either from them just not being as impressive as other shadows in my collection or being kind of loose in the pan. But if you're interested in that, I'm sure you could search on YouTube and find other videos about the circle pans. But yeah, for me, Stained Glass is where it's at. The first time I purchased from them was in 2019, and I made a purchase of 4 shadows, 2 from their jeweled multichrome line and 2 from their glitter line. So I'm gonna start with the jeweled multichromes because I feel like those shadows might be the most visually impressive, and that's what drew me to them originally to purchase. They're also the most expensive within their line, and they're also the ones that I use least in my collection. The thing that sets the jeweled multichromes apart is that they have a black base to them. So that means that when you put down the pigment, you're going to see black powder as a background that makes the pigment stand out so much against it. Some people like that look. Some people work with it really well, but for me and my personal makeup taste, I don't tend to go that dark with my eyeshadow, so I feel like when I have a black base multichrome on, you can see a dark ring around it, and I feel like I have to build up my mattes more than I'd like to, so then I end up just not wearing them. The 2 that I originally purchased from this line were Oculus and Smoulder. Oculus is this gorgeous teal with a navy blue and purple flip, and just like looking at the swatches, I find it mesmerizing. Smoulder is a hot pink with a bronze flip, and you could also see some green in there as well. I have no intentions to move these shadows out of my collection because I do think they're so good and they're such a good baseline to compare other multichromes to. I think it's possible I'll have like a multichrome renaissance one day and start wearing these all over my eyes. I think it's also worth noting early on in this video that they do have a lot of shadows that are very similar to each other, and you know, I'm not going to tell you what to buy, but I do think that like the average makeup consumer does not need every shadow that they have. I remember hearing a makeup creator who wasn't into indie shadows talk about them, and they're like, oh, when I order for them, I'm just gonna buy the entire line that at that time was like $500. And I just remember thinking that like, there's no reason to put that pressure on yourself, because you would get these in and get this shadow that's like teal and navy and purple, and then a shadow that's slightly bluer and navy and purple, and then this same thing, there's another one like this that's slightly more purple. So I would encourage you to just look at swatches, find the couple that are right for you, and don't feel the pressure to collect them all. I have 2 more from the jeweled multichrome line. The next one is Forge, which I feel like I talk about a lot because this shadow is so impressive. I don't find it quite as intense as the other 2 for some reason when it comes to the black base, but it has a really strong shift of red, gold, and green, and I love it. You could also just see how intensely sparkly these are. Sparkle is like the most important thing to me with an eyeshadow, so these cover the sparkle and then do shifts on top of that. And then the final jeweled multichrome I have, I find to be a bit different. This is the shade Weathered. Weathered is more of like an antique greeny gold. I find it to be less shifty, and I find it to have less of a black base. This is definitely the one out of the 4 that I wear the most. Let's quickly touch on a line that I only have one shadow of, and it's extremely new to my collection. This is the shade Smoulder. They released it when they came out with the curated 9-pan Christmas bundles, and it was listed on their website. I didn't even realize that until I saw it on their website when I went to make my Black Friday purchase, and I was like, okay, I'll get it. And I did, and I'm really happy with it. It's described as a dimensional multichrome, which is a new line for them, and it reminds me a lot of Forge, but it just has more rosiness in place of the red, and it has less of a black base, and it's really sparkly. Yeah, looking at it here, it's like Forge is way more rusty, but I think it's really nice on my first impression. I used it once in my making a Christmas palette video. I was wearing it on my eyes, and I really liked how it looked. I kind of consider it like a cool dimensional nude shadow that you can pair with brown mattes, and it won't stand out that much, but then it'll catch that green flip and it'll look really special. Okay, the next line that I only have two of are the hybrid multichromes. I find some of these lines within the stained glass collection to be kind of similar, kind of overlappy, and you'll see that the ones that I love the most all seem to have kind of a similar finish, but these are described to be an easy to use sparkly shadow that can be used on their own, or they can be built up. They work on all ages and all skin tones. So the first one I have in this collection is Rose Line. And this is one that if you made me narrow down my eyeshadow collection, I wouldn't grab this one. For me, that could be a combination of the color. Also, the formula is less shimmery than these ones above it are. And we're going to do the glitter multichromes next. It's definitely less shimmery than the glitter multichromes. I think for me, it works kind of as like a layering piece. Like I would use this as like the outer edges of a halo eye, but nothing about it is special enough to me to like love and cherish it. And then the other one I have in this line is the shade Shard. This one looks very shifty in the pan. It's kind of like it looks like a berry to me. It's like very bluish and very reddish at the same time. I think this is a really pretty shadow, and I love that to deepen up looks as well, but I also think it would work well all over the lid. We're gonna talk about Abrasion soon, and I feel like this is like the deeper version of Abrasion, and I really like wearing them together. So the next line, I think it's my favorite, and I think it's a lot of people's favorite also. This is the glitter multichromes. I feel like these are the shadows that are maybe most comparable to the kind of like shimmery multichromes that other indie brands do, but they're just like so good. They're just so good. I think this is also the chunk that I have the most of any of the subcategories of the stained glass collection. So in addition to Oculus and Smoulder, the other two of the four that I first bought from Clionadh were in this line, and they were the shades Grissaille and Abrasion. I had heard about these from Hannah Louise Poston talking about them, and she was the one that was like, had gotten a selection of them, of jeweled multichromes, of glitter multichromes, and was raving about the glitter ones because she was so surprised. And I feel like these two shadows are like two different ends of the same coin. Is that the phrase? They both have a reddish base to them, but Grissaille has this like cool, almost neutral, almost green sparkle to it. I always describe this as like a what even is this color type of color, and I love it so much. And Abrasion, similar base, but it has a lot more blueness to it. And this is the one that I said looks really good paired with Shard here, because those also are similar, but one is deeper than the other one. I love these shadows so much. I should just start every day with swatching my Clionadh shadows. We have Chandelier, which is this really interesting color, and I feel like when I first got it, I didn't grasp the specialness of it at first, but it's like this beigey, sparkly shade with a lot of green to it, and I've found it's like one of my favorite inner corner shades ever. It just looks so pretty. It looks like sparkly and special, but not stark, not like you're putting something bright white on the inner corner, which I'm kind of like moving away from, but it also is so pretty and works all over the lid as well. We have Corrosion. I feel like this one always comes up in my making palette videos, because this is like the perfect gold. It's like kind of antique-y without being green. It's kind of bronze without being orange. It's like a very true gold, but just reaches its arms out into every direction. And I think these are good examples of like dimensional colors that aren't necessarily shifty. I might have said this before, but all of the shadows in this line are called multichromes. It's called like the Stained Glass collection of multichromes, and I wouldn't call all of them multichromes. I think if that's what you're looking for, I would recommend looking at a bunch of swatches, because even though there's so many subcategories, I don't think they're necessarily consistent within the subcategories. And in fact, there's been a couple over my career that I have decluttered, and I'll tell you about those also. Well, I guess I'll mention now that I've decluttered one of the glitter multichromes. It's a shade Kaleidoscope that I feel like I bought at a time when I was just like looking to buy more Clionadh shades. I had definitely bought the ones that called to me most, but I wanted more. I wanted to replicate that experience of getting these really exciting, beautiful shadows. And for me, that one just felt a little bit more like piecey. Like it wasn't, I don't want to say hard press, because I don't want these to be hard press, and I definitely don't think they are, but it was a very loose press, and it didn't give me enough sparkle or pigment. It was just kind of like a very bleh shade for me. But while I'm not one to be like, maybe I got a bad batch, I do think that when it comes to handmade shadows, there's probably more room for error than there is with shadows made by machines. Because when I see like Lauren May Beauty use Kaleidoscope, it looks gorgeous on her. And mine just didn't look like I felt hers did. But still, the fact that I've had so many of these shadows and I've decluttered 3 of them says a lot, because I don't think there's any other brand that I've only decluttered 3 of after trying so many. Over the summer, they did a big expansion. They don't release new shades that often, which is a little bit frustrating, but also a little bit like, you know that it's special when they do. And you know that a lot of thought went into it when they do. So they had a huge expansion over the summer with over 40 shades, and I went through all of the videos and posts I could find from people that received them in PR. I had like an ongoing list where I was like, this one looks less sparkly, this one looks like this, blah, blah, blah. And I chose 11 to purchase out of the 40. I did an eye swatching video, which I'll link down below. I think that's my most viewed video on my channel, but I think that's a good example of they release products thoughtfully. And also, I suggest looking at as many resources as you can before you purchase to make sure you know what you're getting, and don't just count on something looking like your other glitter multichrome because it's in the same heading. So from those new ones over the summer, this is Adornment, Embellishment, that's kind of matches my nails, and Trinket. What I have on my eyes is the shade Etched. This one also was in my Black Friday order along with Smoulder. Those are the only 2 eyeshadows that I purchased. And after I made that order over the summer, I was doing that thing where I was trying to look for more shadows to want to replicate the experience, but you know, of course, all of the shadows that I decided to not get, I decided to not get for a reason, and I was trying to combat the part of me that just wanted more new with the reason that I had already decided that the ones that I bought were the best for me. But I feel like one truly slipped through the cracks, and that's the shade Etched. And every time I've seen it, I'm like, that looks like the perfect formula for me. That looks like a gorgeous color that really excites me. I am so happy with it. I feel like it looks like a deeper shadow than it is. It really is like a glowy, mid-tone, bluey purple. And because it doesn't really have much of a base to it, it's very versatile and I find it very easy to work with. So this is it all over my eyes, just paired with a bunch of brown mattes. I'm really excited. I'm gonna be wearing this look all day. I'm going to the city today to see Avatar in IMAX. And this is how I'm going to look. Oh, it's like the color of the people. Cool. Wait, you know what's funny? I might have swatched Carving before when I said I was swatching Grissaille. Because I've been trying to put the ones I already swatched in a different spot, and I picked up this one, I'm like, is that Carving? Where's Carving? And it's Grissaille. Let's see. That would make kind of sense. Because I feel like this Grissaille was looking a bit more green than I expected. Oh yeah, I swatched the wrong one. I'm so sorry. So this is the true Grissaille, and this one is Carving. Both of them I love. I kind of feel like if you just want the cream of the crop, my top 3 recommendations, it probably would be these 3. I feel like Carving was kind of like the missing sibling from that first order that I placed. But yeah, you can see the difference there, that Grissaille is a bit more just like cool over the warm berry base, and Carving is a bit more greenish over like a brownish berry base. I'm so sorry. And to finish off the glitter multichromes, we have Blaze, Opulent, and Tracery. Blaze is this gorgeous, like, peachy, pinky color. Opulent is this, like, rose champagne, I would call it. A very neutral shade, but a very interesting shade. And Tracery is this, like, gorgeous, glowy, light purple. Another formula that I think is pretty similar overall to the glitter formula is the Glitter Vibrance, which I think has the same description as the glitter formula, except it has brighter base colors, and I have 3 from this line, all from their expansion over the summer. We have Diadem, Empress, and Noble. Diadem's this gorgeous bright blue with light pink and green reflex to it. I've been asked if this is a dupe for the Cosmos, and that was a concern before I bought it, but I would say definitely no. I think that the base on this is just way brighter than the Cosmos. I do really like them both, but if I had to choose, I do like the Cosmos more. Next is Empress. This one is very pinky, and it has like bronze and orange reflect to it. This one is so beautiful, so special. It's a good, like, right in between a more neutral shade and a more colorful shade. If you're kind of like stepping your toe out into color, I would probably recommend that one. And then Noble is a bit of a thicker texture than the other 2, but I love the color. I didn't think this one really had a shift when I first eye swatched it, but I have noticed in certain light, I can see like a bluiness to it. But either way, I love the color of it enough that even if it had no shift, I'm still totally sold. The next category is the Vibrant Multichromes, which I think are pretty similar to the Glitter Vibrance, except they don't claim to have as big of a particle size. The first one is Bloodline, which I love as an interesting neutral. I think this one also does kind of belong in the same family as Abrasion and Grissaille and Carving. It has that same kind of like berry base, but the sparkle on top does look a bit more neutral, although it is very like nuanced. Like I can't really put my finger on what color that is. And I know also that this one does look very shifty in lower light. We have Crown Jewel, which is like my favorite really bright blue in my collection. The shadow I don't think of as particularly shifty, but it's such a magnificent bright blue. You can tell it's like a bit brighter than Diadem is. And we have Royalty, this gorgeous mid-toned purple with a lot of light reflect in there too, kind of like a bluish tint to it. But if we compare it to Etched, Etched has way more blue and Royalty's way more purple. The next one is Majesty, which took a tumble at one point, but I was able to like just push it back in. So it's okay, it just looks a little bit less textured out of the pan. And we have Throne, which I was really excited about when it came out because I didn't have that many yellows and I thought it just looked really like different and unique. But Throne would be on the chopping block if I were to chopping block these. So here's the thing. Majesty, which is this orange, it has a lot of like yellowness in it. And Throne does not have that much sparkle, but it does have a lot of pink in it. I remember using them together once and being like, wait, which one is which? Just because Throne was not as yellow as I thought it would be, and Majesty wasn't as orange as I thought it would be. So I do really like Majesty, but Throne, like, I don't know, it's not something that I reach for because when I want something that light, I tend to want something more sparkly as well, and it is kind of like an odd shadow. They also launched the Earth Vibrance line in their new expansion, and I feel like this was a big hit of that launch also. I bought 3, and even just like scrolling through the list right now to see which ones I had in this category, I'm like, I want that one, I want that one, I want that one. My favorite out of the 3 is the shade Bronze Fountain. I just think this is the most pretty bronze. Like, it has so much going on to it. It's like a really nice, easy to work with texture. It kind of looks like a soda cup, like a fountain soda. It has some like readiness to it. It has something green to it, but overall it just comes across as a bronze. I think if I had to choose one bronze to keep in my whole collection, it would probably be this one. Don't hold me to that, but that's how I feel. The next one that I have is the shade Estate. This one's like a pretty green chartreusey color with like a brown base to it. I do like it. It looks very like old money-ish, but it's not my favorite type of color. But I think formula-wise and everything, if this is your type of color, I'd say definitely go for it because it's a really nice shadow. And then I also have Wall of Ivy, which I feel like is also on the chopping block a little bit for me, just based on color. I have a lot of shadows somehow in my collection that are this type of like forest green, and I just don't reach for that type of color that much. Oh, it looks so pretty when I swatch it though. I'd say this one definitely comes across more colorful than a lot of the other Earth Vibrance. But yeah, no complaints about the formula. It's just the color that's my only concern, just in terms of the rest of my collection and how much use I get out of that color. Next is the Electric Multichrome collection, which is described as bright and pastel-toned eyeshadow and artist pigments with intense colored shifts. They might resemble the Vibrance, but the formula is completely unique. And that's kind of funny because I didn't even realize that the 2 that I have from this collection are the 2 Clionadh shadows that made it into my 20 favorites of 2022. So that actually makes me really interested in trying more from this line. I don't know. I just did my whole spiel about like sticking to my gut and not trying to replicate the same feelings of happiness, but like, what if they do make me happy? So I have 2 shadows. I have Mural and Emblem. They both have greeniness to them, but Mural, I feel like it's like a brighter green and it has a lot of orange sparkle on top of it. Emblem's a little bit more of like a mint green with a lot of pink sparkles on it. So this is Mural and Emblem. I love those so much. I feel like these also kind of fit into the idea of the Earth Vibrance in that they don't look like the most intense, colorful shadows, but they have a lot of intrigue to them. They're very interesting shadows. But I guess it makes sense they're separated because they are definitely more pastel-y. But yeah, these 2 lines, I really want to try more of. They also have a pastel multichrome line that I don't have any shadows from. I've heard those described as just being like softer, less impressive, and they don't sound like something that would appeal to me. They have a pearlescent line that just has 4 pinks in it. I was really tempted by the shadow Palace. When I was first kind of fantasizing about buying more after the initial expansion, that was one that was on my list. But I'm just kind of surprised by their choice to have like 4 that all kind of like in the pan look pretty similar to each other. And then we have Deep Iridescent Multichromes. I have 2 from this line and 1 that I've decluttered. So the shade that I've decluttered is the shade Azure, which kind of to me reminds me a lot of Shard, but it just didn't have the same amount of sparkle to it. It didn't like bring me happiness. It was one that I would reach for and I'd be like, okay. I know this line is described as being created with medium to deep skin tones in mind. So that could be part of why that shadow didn't work for me, because that's clearly not my skin tone and that's totally okay. But the thing that confuses me is that one of my favorite Clionadh shades in general is from this line and was nothing like Azure. So the one that I love is the shade Ochre. This is like this gorgeous, bright, sparkly chartreuse. It has so much going on to it and it's so full pigment. So that's Ochre. It kind of looks like a yellowy gold, but it definitely has a green shift to it also in certain lights. and I love it so much. The other one I have in this line is Verte, which I'm a little bit less sold on, but I do like it. This one has like a really bright Kelly green flip to it. I feel like it's one that I think is kind of similar to Wall of Ivy, but I would choose this one over Wall of Ivy. I think definitely when it comes to colors that I'm less excited about, my like margin of what's the same color gets a little bit bigger, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I do really like these shades. I really like Ochre, and I didn't like Azure. Oh, I think I did miss one when we were in the glitter section, because I realized that, I mean, unless they took it off of the page, but it came up when I searched it. I have the shade Emboss. This one I'm not crazy about also. I just find it to be a little bit less sparkly than the other glitter multichromes. And even like touching it, it feels a lot less textured. It kind of reminds me, I'm gonna swatch it down here, of Peachy Keen from JD Glow, but a little bit more pink to it. But overall, it doesn't excite me that much. Okay, and now let's get into the iridescent section. I find their iridescent breakdowns confusing to the point that I don't even bother thinking about it. They have glitter iridescent, and then Series 1 iridescent, Series 2 iridescent. And I don't know if I'm going to... Yeah, I don't know if they say what the difference between the Series 1 and Series 2 is, unless it's just that they release them at different times. Okay, so apparently in their glitter iridescent multichromes, I have one of them. It's the shade Gilding, and this is one that I still haven't completely wrapped my head around. It might just be because of how I have my shadows arranged that a lot of the times these iridescents are kind of like split up and I don't know which is which because they all look so white in the pan. It's described as reflecting bright gold, silver, green, turquoise. I can tell you that this one is a very chunky finish, and even like picking up the swatch, you can see it doesn't like swatch evenly because it's very flaky. That one's Gilding. This one is probably on the chopping block also, just because I haven't wrapped my head around it, and I find it too chunky to use on my inner corner for my personal makeup taste. I would probably just use it to layer over shadows on the lid, but I don't tend to like to do that because even though it reflects color, it does still kind of come up white when it's straight on. So I would keep that all in mind if you're looking at that shadow. In their Series 1 iridescence, the only one that I've had from there is one that I decluttered. It's the shade Reflectance. The thing that I didn't like about Reflectance is it just felt very white and not sparkly. You know, it just felt like I'm like just putting a white reflecting powder on, and it didn't do much that was exciting to me. And on my inner corner, it looked too stark, and I felt like I didn't even have the option to layer it on the lid because it would just look like I'm putting a straight white on the lid. So yeah, that one made its way out of my collection. And then Series 2. These two I'll swatch together because I think they're kind of similar. This is the shade Luxe, and this is one that I do have my head wrapped around, and I like it a lot. And then the shade Phosphorescence, which I don't have my head wrapped around quite as much because they look the same in the pan. So let's see. I'm gonna just swatch these on my hand because we're almost done. So this is the shade Luxe. And this to me has green and yellow flip to it. It has something pinky about it, and I think it's really pretty. This is the shade Phosphorescence, and it's definitely chunkier. I see like flakes falling down as I was swatching it. And I would say it just looks like more of like a cool toned bluish color, whereas Luxe is very yellow. It is pretty. I feel like I'm gonna try to use this one more, and if I don't figure out a way I love to use it, it'll probably end up being on the chopping block. And then my final two are inner corner shades that I like a lot, and to me, in the pan, I can tell what they are, and that goes a long way. So we have the shade Halo, which is an iridescent red, and the shade UV, which is an iridescent purple. I find both of these really nice because although they are sparkly, they are definitely a smaller particle size, so they stay in place a little bit better, they're easier to control, they're not as bold. So that's Halo and UV. And those definitely are two of the most used shades in this range. So there you have it. These are the 40 Clionadh shades that I have in my collection. 43 if we include the ones that I don't have anymore but I told you about. I love these so much. They are truly like special little gems. I love that the pan is different than the other shadows that I have because it makes them stand out and feel special, but they're also not so big that they don't go in nicely with other single shadows. Here's another look at all of these gorgeous, amazing swatches. Absolutely delicious. I would love to hear what your Clionadh favorites are if you are a Clionadh stan like me. And let me know if you think I should get more of those earth vibrance and electric vibrance. Because I could be swayed. I could definitely be swayed. Either way, I hope this was either informative or fun to watch. If you enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. It really means a lot to me. And I will see you again for another video tomorrow. Bye.